Welcome to Vibe Check, a series where we cover your favorite games and the emotions you feel through their mechanics. Today we're looking at Sonic Frontiers, a game that tries to break the mold of a decade-and-a-half old formula. Does it successfully do that? Well, wouldn't you like to know? I guess we should talk about what most modern Sonic games are like before getting into Frontiers. The boost formula was established in Sonic Unleashed way back in the prehistoric days of 2008. Most 3D Sonic games since then have been linear roller coaster rides, with you dodging enemies along the path as you try to reach the end. That gameplay style allowed them to create some beautiful set pieces that really got the heart pumping. It was exciting to go through those stages. Personally though, I always found myself wanting more. Way back when Sonic was on the Genesis, player expression was a big part of the series. Sonic was fast, but the game didn't really hold your hand. You had to keep an eye out for enemies and hazards that would appear on screen almost faster than a human could react to. But part of the fun was playing the level over again, remembering where those hazards were and overcoming them. You'd blaze your own path through the level. Sonic games post-Unleashed didn't really feel like they had that. Granted, I'm most familiar with Generations, so maybe it's better in other games, but in that one, like I said, it's a roller coaster ride. Which is fun in its own right, but you don't have much agency. You're just kinda strapped in, watching the whole level play out in exactly the same way the developers thought it would. There's not a whole lot of ways to express yourself. Sonic Frontiers kinda wants to challenge that. And through what perspective does it seek to change up the formula? By turning Sonic into The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Wait, Breath of the Wild, that's it, Breath of the Wild. It was so hard not to think of Breath of the Wild while I was playing this. I haven't watched any other video essays on Frontiers, considering I just played it recently, but I'm sure like 90% of the videos on this game bring up Breath of the Wild. It's that obvious of an influence. I can't imagine talking about this game and not bringing it up. There's some small things that draw out comparisons, like with the Coco being obviously analogous to the Koroks. But the structure is what matters here. Sonic is back in an open world again. Well, there's a few open zones as opposed to one open world, but you know what I mean. Not since Sonic Adventure have we had a Sonic game with open zones like this. That doesn't count. Ugh, okay, I guess that one counts. Not since Sonic 06 have we had a Sonic game with open zones. And to be honest, I super missed this. I grew up playing Sonic Adventure. I loved the world of that game. Station Square was just a place. It wasn't a level to beat. It was awesome to have a place to just hang out in, outside of the traditional action stages. Because during those, you're in a certain mindset. You're locked in, focused on surviving and completing whatever objective you have. But in Station Square, the Mystic Ruins, or the Egg Carrier, you didn't have any of that pressure. The vibe was completely different. It was chill. Sonic Frontiers harkens back to that a little bit, though the zones are much more expansive here. Comparatively, Station Square feels like a level select screen. This is an actual zone with stuff to do. But it still has that low stakes vibe. The game does have more traditional boost stages, but you aren't pressured into them. Eventually you need to play some to progress the story, but if you want to just run around the open zone grabbing collectibles for 30 minutes, you can do that. Speaking of collectibles, we're going to segue into perhaps the most interesting part of this game. When Breath of the Wild was in development, I'm sure Nintendo had to think about how to populate the world with interesting things to do. Sure, you can have towns with people to talk to and enemy camps to fight, but what about puzzles? That's a massive part of the series. To alleviate that, they created shrines. Shrines are areas you can enter and interact with a little puzzle. They put 120 of those all across the game world, so the player would always be finding something to engage the puzzle-solving part of their brain. Sonic Frontiers doesn't have a direct analog to that, but it has what I'm gonna call micro-challenges, and they serve kind of the same purpose. All across the game's islands are little distractions to distract yourself with as you go from cyberspace level to cyberspace level. The challenges themselves range from super simple and short to kinda complex and medium length. While they're not necessarily as meaty as Zelda shrines, they're short enough to be worth doing on your way somewhere, like you'll be heading to an objective and see a spring on the ground. Might as well take it and grab whatever collectible it inevitably leads to. So, I described most of the important changes to the Sonic formula. How did they work out? I feel like I'd be doing the Sonic series a disservice if I didn't lead with talking about the controls. Because that's the most important thing at the end of the day, right? You can be in the best level ever created, but it doesn't matter if it's not fun to run around in. Thankfully, Sonic Frontiers is A-okay in that department. Acceleration and turning radius are pretty good. That's something I always had a problem with in games like Generations. The turning radius was too wide. It felt like I was turning a car. But this feels more like I'm controlling a character. I think their decision to lean away from the wide turning radius was influenced by the fact that you're playing in such big open zones. As much as I don't like it, it kinda made sense in linear stages. There's no need for full 360-degree movement when 99% of the game's challenges are coming at you straight on. Making the turning radius wider allows the player to make finer adjustments. The game's cyberspace levels still do kinda have that wider turning radius, but it's not the worst thing in the world. What is the worst thing in the world is the cyberspace level built around you drifting. It's like they wanted to lean into that car racing feel with these, but it just did not work. Drifting didn't really feel right in Generations, but this is just on a whole other level. Thankfully, they only use this gimmick on one stage, so I won't hold it against them too much. And I might have a nitpick or two, like the fact when you walk off a cliff, a lot of the times you'll just run down the lip of the cliff for a split second, making it hard to jump and recover if you realize you made a mistake. Overall though, controls are fine. While there is room for improvement, I think this is the best Sonic has controlled in a long time. Regarding physics, I'd probably say the same thing. Momentum is the best it's been in a 3D Sonic game in a while. But I think it can be so much better. This is honestly my biggest gripe with modern Sonic. I think it needs to lean into momentum way more. You want to know my favorite piece of Sonic media? The Sonic CD opening. Something about this captures a vibe of Sonic that I don't think has ever been in one of his games before. He just goes so damn fast in this opening. And what's important is that he doesn't really stick to one track or path. He's all over the place. I like the idea of going fast in a Sonic game. Yeah, big surprise there. But I want to have to earn that. You don't really earn speed in most modern Sonic games, even this one. You just hop on a rail or hit a dash pad and you go zooming along. It's a developer-designated speed point. But in this intro here, you see Sonic pick up some speed, going through the landscape at an incredible pace. When he falls in some water, he loses that speed. That's punishment for hitting a spot you weren't supposed to. Sonic Frontiers is the closest we've ever been to that dream of mine, the ideal Sonic game. But we're still not quite there. It's kinda hard to describe why, but here's me trying to do some cool stuff with momentum. You can just see that this isn't satisfying. Imagine what it's like to play. Something's gotta be done with the boost. I think it trivializes speed way too much. The fact that you don't really have to earn the right to go fast means it's not as satisfying. I don't know what should be done about it, but the ability to instantly hit max speed removes what I think could be an interesting area to allow for intrinsic growth as the player learns to maintain momentum themselves. Unfortunately, complaints like that can only be resolved by completely redesigning the playspace. These levels were designed with the knowledge that the player can hit max speed at the press of a button. Taking that away and just hoping that they could use momentum to build up enough speed wouldn't really work in all cases. Though that's mostly me writing a wish list for a potential Sonic Frontiers 2. I think just the raw game feel of a Sonic game that focuses on momentum and movement could be so amazing. The more in control you are of your speed, the more satisfying it is to go fast. But unfortunately, that means less skilled players won't get to experience the highs of, going fast in a Sonic game. So we probably won't ever see that. A pretzel can dream though. The world as it exists in this game is fine for the movement system it was built for. It's cool to boost around at top speed, clearing vast distances and trying to collect stuff along the way. Though speaking of that, I'm not sure where I stand on the micro challenges. A lot of them are really hand-holdy. Like you'll hit a spring and the camera will rotate around to give you a 2.5D perspective. You can only move left or right, not towards or away from the camera. Sometimes the camera will lock in place, sometimes control will be taken away when riding on a rail. This is kinda what I was just talking about. The more you take control away from the player, the less meaningful a challenge feels. They're not all like that though. Some you can jump into or out of at different points. There are some memory tokens I was able to collect without having to do any of the challenge leading up to it. I'd be in a nearby micro-challenge or just on a cliff, and I could jump to collect it. I like that. It gives the player some agency and lets them break the game a little. I compared these to shrines in Breath of the Wild, but after some rumination, I think they're more comparable to Super Mario Odyssey's moons. There are some moons in that game that are super trivial to get, almost to the point where it makes you question why it was even in the game at all. There are an abundance of micro-challenges in this game that are just nothing. Like you hit a spring, grind a rail, collectible. What's the point of including that? Really think about that for a second. What's the point of including such a thing? Because it's not a challenge in any sense of the word. It's just a thing you do. Hit the spring, hold forward, and you eventually collect something. There's no mental stimulation or twist there. It feels kinda mean and diminutive to say it like that, but that's how I feel about them after some reflection. In the moment, it's whatever to do these. One might even call them slightly engaging. But there is just so many of them. Trying to 100% an island honestly sucks, because there's so many of these little micro-challenges dotted around, and it's hard to remember which ones you did. You have to keep opening and closing the map to look for memory tokens you missed. It's overwhelming in a way. I spent a good amount of my time just running around doing these early on in my playthrough. Genuinely, I thought they were fun to just kind of mindlessly do. But at a certain point, it becomes boring. You're overstimulated with all the different options to ride this rail or this rail, jump on this spring, use this dash pad. I have to wonder if these would feel more meaningful as not micro-challenges, but just challenges. Rather than like 100 of these across an island, just do 50. Have the amount of challenges, but make them twice as long. Maybe even do 25 challenges, but make them really long. Imagine how satisfying it would be to go through a minute-long challenge to get a collectible, compared to a 10-second quote-unquote challenge. Though maybe that'd feel weird. The cyberspace levels are generally a minute or two long. Maybe having these super short, tiny dopamine hits balance out the whole experience. It's hard to say what changing up the formula of the micro-challenges would do to the game as a whole. Interestingly though, they did add some more complex open zone challenges in a post-release update. A handful of new challenges were added to each island, and they're pretty much exactly what I described. A minute or so long, more engaging, and more rewarding. I really liked doing these. Still though, it's hard to say what a zone of only these would feel like. Would it feel more or less rewarding to complete 5 micro challenges versus 1 normal challenge? Not sure. Broadening back out to the experience as a whole, I mostly enjoyed my time with Sonic Frontiers. There were some parts that really frustrated me, some parts I literally could have fallen asleep during, and some parts I really liked. More than anything, this game has me hyped for the sequel. I want to see how they can iterate upon this formula for a direct follow-up. None of my problems with the game are at its core. All the stuff I want to see improved on could be done for a sequel. Though if I could have only one of my suggestions implemented into a hypothetical Sonic Frontiers 2, I'd say work on the momentum. Build a Sonic game where it takes skill to go fast. The best parts of this game are when I'm going fast and it feels like I earned it. Getting locked in as Sonic is an experience like no other. Check out either of these videos up next. I'd like to get back to doing more non-video game world tour videos, but they're just so fun to do, it's hard to tear myself away from them. I'll try and work on making some more videos in my other series in the coming months. Like, subscribe, you get it. Thanks for watching and see you next time.